I had always believed in the sanctity of love, the unwavering bond of trust that held two people together. That belief came crashing down on a quiet Thursday evening. I wasn't expecting much from the day, just another shift managing the Riviera Pearl Hotel, a family-run boutique gem nestled along the sun-kissed coastline of Port Avalon. It was the place I'd grown up in, the place I'd dreamed of owning one day. But that evening, as I stepped into my backyard, I found the first thread of betrayal. Cisco, my little black schnauzer, came bounding up to me with something in his mouth. He was always a mischievous little guy, digging up treasures from the yard. But this wasn't a stick or a ball, it was a pair of boxer shorts, blue with orange alligators. The University of Florida logo screamed at me. My mind raced. I didn't own anything like this. And the only person I could think of who might was Paul Harrington, my wife Susie's boss, a man whose name she dropped with an unnerving frequency in our conversations. "Cisco," I muttered, my voice thick with disbelief. "Where did you find this?" He wagged his tail innocently, oblivious to the storm brewing in my chest. I tried to rationalize it, maybe there was some explanation. But a part of me already knew the truth. My wife, Susie, had been distant lately. Her laughter seemed forced, her excuses for late nights too polished. The boxer shorts were just the first crack in the facade. I didn't confront her that night. Instead, I spent hours sitting in the dark, replaying every conversation, every odd look, every moment that didn't quite make sense. The next morning, I made a call to my IT guy, Frank. He was a wizard with security cameras, the kind of guy who could make a lens disappear into the grain of a wooden beam. Over a coffee laced with tension, I explained what I needed. "Frank," I said, my voice barely above a whisper, "I need cameras in my house. Everywhere." He raised an eyebrow but didn't ask questions. Discretion was part of the deal. By the end of the day, my home was rigged with hidden cameras in every room, every angle covered. I could access them from my phone, and everything streamed directly to the cloud. If Susie was hiding something, I would know. The following days passed in a haze of routine. I managed the hotel, greeted guests, and tended to the endless list of tasks that came with running a boutique establishment. But every spare moment, my eyes were glued to the screen, watching my home life unfold in real time. For 2 days, nothing happened. Susie came home, cooked dinner, and watched TV. It was almost enough to make me doubt my suspicions. Then came Monday. I had just wrapped up a meeting with a travel agency when I glanced at my phone. What I saw made my blood run cold. Susie wasn't alone. There, in our bedroom, was Paul Harrington. They laughed, their movements filled with a familiarity that was sickening. My heart pounded as I watched them strip away the last pretense of innocence. Paul's paunchy frame was a stark contrast to the polished image he projected at the office. Susie didn't seem to care. She leaned into him, her hands exploring his aging body with a fervor that left me breathless, not with jealousy, but with rage. I wanted to storm into the house, to demand answers, but I knew better. This wasn't just about catching her in the act. I needed proof, irrefutable evidence of her betrayal. For the next 2 weeks, I endured the unbearable. Every Monday and Thursday, Paul and Susie turned my sanctuary into their playground. Each time, I recorded everything, meticulously compiling hours of footage. Watching it was like ripping open a wound, but I couldn't stop. I needed to understand. Was it love? Lust? Something else entirely? The answer came in a snippet of conversation that cut deeper than any blade. "Do you think Jimmy suspects anything?" Susie asked, her voice light, almost mocking. Paul chuckled. "Jimmy? That clueless little hotel manager? He's too busy with his sandcastles to notice the tides coming in." Their laughter echoed in my ears long after the video ended. They weren't just betraying me, they were mocking me, reducing my life's work, my dreams, to a joke. That was the moment I decided. I wouldn't just confront them. I would dismantle their delusions piece by piece. Thursday came, and with it, the final act of their charade. I had everything prepared, the videos, the accounts, and a plan that would ensure I walked away from this nightmare with more than just my dignity. That afternoon, I parked my car around the corner from my house, waiting for the predictable routine to unfold. Like clockwork, Paul's car pulled up. He entered my home with an air of entitlement, oblivious to the silent witness who had been watching all along. I gave them 20 minutes before stepping into the house. My heart pounded with a mix of anger and anticipation. The sound of muffled voices guided me to the bedroom door. Taking a deep breath, I pushed it open. What I saw wasn't a surprise, but it was no less devastating: Susie, tangled with Paul in a tableau of deceit. "Why don't you two stop and join me in the living room?" I said, my voice cold and measured. Susie shrieked, scrambling to cover herself, while Paul turned an alarming shade of red, his confidence evaporating in an instant. I stepped back, giving them a moment to dress. The awkward shuffle that followed was almost comical, but the weight of the moment pressed heavily on all of us. They entered the living room hesitantly, avoiding my gaze. I motioned for them to sit on the couch while I remained standing, towering over them. Without a word, I reached for the remote and pressed play. The television screen lit up with the damning footage, each frame a testament to their betrayal. Susie's face turned ashen. "Jimmy, please, stop this," she whispered, her voice trembling. I ignored her, letting the video play for another agonizing minute before pausing it. Reaching into my pocket, I pulled out 2 USB drives. "This one's for you, Paul," I said, tossing it onto the coffee table. "Susie, yours is in the dining room." Paul leaned forward, his voice shaky. "What do you want?" $500,000, I replied without hesitation. "Wire it to this account within 2 days. Call it a consulting fee for your moon project." "That's extortion." Paul snapped, his bravado returning for a fleeting moment. I smirked. "No, it's a bargain. If your wife finds out about this, you'll lose far more than money. Alimony, child support, your reputation, it's all on the line. Pay up, and this goes away." Paul's shoulders slumped, the weight of the truth settling over him. "Fine," he muttered. "You'll have your money." I turned to Susie, who was on the verge of tears. "Jimmy, please, it wasn't about love. It was about feeling important." Paul is nothing," I interrupted, my voice sharp. "And neither is whatever you thought this was." Without waiting for her response, I grabbed Cisco's leash and left. The cool evening air hit me as I walked to my car, Cisco trotting happily by my side. It was over. The house, the marriage, the life I'd built with Susie, it all felt like a distant memory, something I no longer needed. 2 days later, the money appeared in my account. I packed my bags and left the town that had become a prison of memories. South America called to me, a land of new beginnings and quiet anonymity. There, on a stretch of beach untouched by the chaos of my past, I found a small hotel for sale. It wasn't much, but it was mine, a fresh start for Cisco and me. The days turned into weeks, and the weight of betrayal slowly lifted. I poured my heart into the hotel, welcoming travelers from all over the world. Cisco became a local celebrity, his antics charming guests and locals alike. Life was simple, peaceful, a far cry from the turmoil I had left behind. Months passed, and the scars of betrayal began to fade, replaced by the satisfaction of building something truly my own. The hotel thrived, its charm drawing in visitors from Europe, the Americas, and beyond. Cisco and I settled into a rhythm, early morning walks on the beach, afternoons spent overseeing the staff, and evenings lounging under the stars. For the first time in years, I felt free. It was a quiet morning when Susie reappeared in my life. The call from the front desk interrupted my routine. "There's a woman here asking for you," the receptionist said. "She's insistent." Curiosity tugged at me. When I reached the lobby, there she was, suitcase in hand, looking as though the weight of the world had finally caught up with her. Her once bright eyes were clouded, her posture defeated. "Jimmy," she said softly, her voice cracking. "I needed to see you." I led her to the restaurant, now empty after breakfast service. Over steaming cups of coffee, she began her story. It spilled out of her in fragments, each word laced with regret. Paul was dead. A heart attack, brought on by the very pills that were supposed to bolster his failing confidence. His wife had uncovered everything, firing Susie and stripping her of the life she had clung to so desperately. I lost everything, Jimmy, she whispered, tears streaking her cheeks. The house, the job, it's all gone. And through it all, I realized that none of it mattered. You mattered. I came here to see if we could try again. Her words hung in the air, heavy with expectation. For a moment, I felt the faint stirrings of old memories, the laughter we once shared, the dreams we once built. But they were fleeting, drowned out by the bitter reality of what she had done. Before I could respond, Greta appeared in the doorway. Her sun-kissed skin glowed against the sheer cover-up she wore, her blonde hair cascading down her shoulders. She was the epitome of carefree elegance, a stark contrast to the broken woman sitting across from me. There you are, Greta said, her German accent lilting. Ingrid and I are ready for the snorkeling trip. You promised us. Susie's eyes widened, taking in the scene. Greta's playful smile, my relaxed demeanor, it was clear that whatever hope she had harbored was now shattered. I stood, placing my coffee cup gently on the table. Susie, I said, my tone firm but not unkind, I've moved on. You should too. Her expression crumbled, but I didn't wait to see her response. Greta slipped her hand into mine as we walked toward the beach, her presence a reminder of the life I had chosen for myself, a life unburdened by betrayal and regret. As we boarded the boat, Cisco wagged his tail enthusiastically, his joy infectious. I looked back at the shore, where Susie stood alone, her figure growing smaller with each passing moment. It was the last time I ever saw her. The chapter of Susie and Paul was finally, unequivocally closed. The days that followed felt lighter, as though a weight I hadn't realized I was carrying had finally lifted. Life in the hotel was simple but fulfilling. Guests came and went, leaving behind stories of their travels and smiles of gratitude. Cisco remained the heart of the place, charming everyone who crossed his path. I no longer thought about Susie or Paul, they had become ghosts of a past I'd left far behind. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting the sky in hues of gold and crimson, Greta and Ingrid joined me on the veranda overlooking the ocean. The three of us shared a quiet moment, the rhythmic crash of the waves providing a soothing backdrop. You're different here, Greta remarked, her blue eyes steadying me. More at peace. I think this is who I was always meant to be, I replied, a faint smile tugging at my lips. Sometimes, it takes losing everything to find yourself. Greta nodded, but her expression turned pensive. You know, Jimmy, you're not like most people. You don't let the past weigh you down. I didn't respond immediately, letting her words settle. She was right, in a way. The betrayal, the heartbreak, even the revenge, it had all been a catalyst, pushing me toward this new life. And while the wounds hadn't disappeared entirely, they had healed enough to stop bleeding. The next morning, I received an email that caught me off guard. It was from an old guest, someone who had stayed at the Riviera Pearl years ago. They had heard about my new hotel and wanted to visit. As I read their warm words of encouragement, a sense of pride welled up within me. I had built something worth talking about, something that was entirely my own. Months turned into years, and the hotel became a cornerstone of the community. Travelers came from far and wide, drawn by the promise of a serene escape and the warm hospitality Cisco and I provided. Greta and Ingrid eventually moved on, as I always knew they would, but their departure wasn't bittersweet. It was simply another chapter closing, making room for new adventures. One day, as I walked along the shoreline with Cisco trotting happily beside me, I realized how far I had come. The man I had been, the naive, trusting husband who had once dreamed of a perfect life, was gone. In his place stood someone stronger, wiser, and unafraid to face the uncertainties of the future. Looking out at the endless expanse of the ocean, I felt a profound sense of gratitude. Not for the betrayal, but for the lessons it had taught me. I had learned to let go, to rebuild, and to find joy in the simple things. And that, more than anything, was the greatest victory of all. As Cisco barked at a passing seagull, I laughed, scooping him into my arms. "Come on, buddy," I said, turning back toward the hotel. "We've got a lot to do." The horizon stretched before us, limitless and full of promise. Whatever lay ahead, I was ready.